Hello everyone, this is Julie from Heart to Hand Stamping. Thank you so much for joining me for this second video in our 3-part video series called One Kaszazz Background Stamp 3 Ways. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, I would encourage you to go and check that out if you can. In that video, I show you how I make these pattern papers that are in our project, and I'll leave a link to that up above and in the description box below, so you can go and check that out. But in this video, in part 2, it is going to be quite a long video, guys. Sorry about that. I really did try to trim it down. It's one of those videos where you really need to go and grab either a tea or coffee and maybe even a bicky because it is quite long. But in this video, I'm going to show you how I construct this whole card, including the little box pocket on the front, and I share some tips and techniques for you that you can actually use in all your other card making projects. So just to help you out a little bit, I have created in the description box below a time-stamped area. So I have got timestamps for all the different topics I'll be covering in this video. So if there's something in particular you would like to see, you can click that and it will link you directly to that part in the video, so you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't want to. But I hope you do. So here's the part where you can pause, go and grab your tea and coffee and your bicky, maybe even 2, and sit back, and I hope you enjoy the video. To get started on the construction of our card, we need to do some cutting and scoring. Now, I've already done that just to save a little bit of time, so I'm going to give you all the measurements now and show you what I've done. So you'll need 2 pieces of A4 cardstock. I'm using 250 GSM cardstock, which is a nice sturdy cardstock. Now, from your first piece, you're going to be cutting your card base, which is this piece here. So I've got an A4 sheet of paper underneath just to show you how I've cut it. So all I've done with this piece, really easy, is I've cut at 7.5 inches. So that's the height of my card, which left me a 3/4 of an inch strip. So what I did with that was I cut it into little pieces like this. These are 1.25 inch pieces that I've cut up. And then all I've done is I've marked 1/8 of an inch across the top and 1/8 of an inch down the side, joined up the dots, and then I've just simply trimmed them off. And I've got some little tags that I'm going to use for embellishments later. Now, we're not going to use all of these tags, but it's good just to make them up and have them set aside for later. They always come in handy. So that's that. Now, the score marks that I've made on the base card is 5 inches and then 10 1/8 of an inch. So 5 inches, 10 1/8 of an inch. And then I've simply folded my card over this way and folded over that way. And then all I've done for the corners is I've used my crocodile corner chomper, and I have used this one. This is called Scallop. And I've just used that one. I've just popped it in like that and cut it on each corner. You can use any corner chomper you have, or any decorative corner edge that you have, or none at all. You can just leave it square. That's just something I liked. I like the finish of it, but you can do whatever you like to do and according to what tools you have. So that's the first piece. Now you're going to take your second piece of A4 cardstock here, and this is the first piece you're going to cut. So this piece measures, just check my notes, I'm telling you the right thing. Yes, this is 3 7/8 by 7 inches. Okay, so 3 7/8 by 7 inches. And then the next piece I put here. Okay, and this piece is 5 5/8 by 5. So 5 5/8 by 5, and then the third piece you're going to cut will fit here, 3 7/8 by 3 inches. Now again, this piece I've corner chomped, but again, you don't have to, that's just something I like to do. Now the score marks on these pieces, on this piece, it was simply scored in half, so at 3 1/2 inches. Okay, so 3 1/2 inches and score, and then fold, and I have a little card insert there. I've also corner chomped those corners as well. And then for this piece, I've created a little box fold for the front of the card here, and this isn't what I did in my prototype, but I found, I'll show you the prototype. This is a prototype I created, and this is the little pocket we'll be making, but I found this really hard to get in and out, this little card. That's what this piece is, our little card. It was really stiff and hard, and there's nothing worse than giving someone a gift and they can't open it, right? We want them to open it easily. So instead of just this single fold, I've created a little box fold, which will make it a lot easier. So to do that, you just need to add a few score marks. So the first, to score along here, these two, okay, the first one is at 2 3/4 inches, and then 2 7/8 of an inch. So the first score is 2 3/4 inches, and then 2 7/8. So it's just a 1/8 of an inch gap here. And then for these score marks, it's just 3/8 of an inch and then 1/2 inch. Again, we've got a 1/8 of an inch. Turn it around, 3/8 of an inch and 1/2 inch, just so you've got that 1 inch gusset there. Okay, so once you've got that scored, go ahead and fold all your score marks. So I just went ahead and folded them like that. Like that. And then I've come in and I've used my ruler. I'll move that now, we don't need that anymore. I used my ruler, my metal ruler, and my craft blade, and I've trimmed it just below that score mark on one side only, on one side, and I hope you can see that. I've actually trimmed it right past that first score mark to the second score mark. Okay, can you see that? So you trim that right to there, and the same on the other side. I've trimmed it so it's just below the score mark, and I've trimmed it past that first one to the second one. And then all you need to do then is just take your little scissors, and we're just going to snip a little tiny angle, not too big of an angle, little tiny angle to that first corner, and then straight down like that. So it looks like that. Okay, I'll show you again on this side. So we're going to snip a tiny bit of an angle into that corner, and then straight down. Okay, and that's what your piece will look like once you've trimmed it out. Okay, so now when we fold it, we have, it's almost like a little box, but see, we've got a lot more room now. We've got a little tiny spine on it, and then when I come to put my card in, it's going to slip in there nicely. Now it's a lot more room in here, but don't forget we're going to be layering that with our papers that we've decorated as well. So that's it. So that's it for the cutting and scoring for now. We're going to be doing some cutting of our pattern papers later, but just to get started, that's the base cuts done. Now we have all our cutting and scoring done, we're going to do some inking of our edges. So I'm going to start with Antique Linen Distress Ink, and I'm going to take my ink blending tool, and all I'm going to do is, this is the outside of my card, okay, I'm just going to take that onto my Teflon mat, and I'm just going to blend some ink around the edges. You don't have to be too neat with this, because most of that's going to get covered up with our paper. But we just want to make sure the outer edge has some colour on it. So you just do that around all the edges, all the outside edges, including the spine edges like this, the folded edges, like that. I'll go ahead and finish that off and show you what that looks like. Well, I've got my antique linen inking done, and what I've done is I've inked the entire outside edge of my card base. I've done both of these fold lines here, and then I've also done inside this flap, but I haven't put any ink inside here. I'm going to put a card insert in there. So I've just kept the flap inked on the inside and the outside, but the rest of that is just on the outside. And I've also done the little box pocket as well. I've done this outside section, and I've made sure I've got ink on all of those little 1/8 of an inch spine areas. And I've also put some ink on the inside edge here because that will probably be seen a little bit. So that's that. Then our card I've just done on one side only, just done the outer edge. And then on our folded card, I've just done the front all around the edge, nothing on the inside or on the back, just on the front. So when you've done that, what I like to do is add a little bit more interest, and I like to take my walnut stain oxide ink, and I'm just simply going to take my blending tool, and I'm just going to go around the edges like that, just to add a little bit of contrast. And it will just make our pattern paper pop when we pop it on. I have to apologize for the light changing here, guys. The sun keeps going behind a cloud and so it's changing the lighting here. So we do that wherever I've put antique linen. I'm going to go ahead and put that around the edges, and I'll show you what that looks like when I'm done. Okay, I've got that done now. You can see I've added some walnut stain all around those edges, and on my folded edges I've added it just on the inside here where I've got my antique linen. So I've done that. I've done the little box envelope, pocket on the front, and I've added the oxide onto each fold, as you can see, and then all around the card and all around our folded card. So next thing to do is to cut out our pattern paper. Cutting out the pattern paper is a simple process. It's just as easy as measuring the piece you want to cover and taking just 1/8 of an inch off both the width and the height. So for example, the front of my card is 5 inches by 7.5 inches. So I would cut my patterned paper 4 7/8 by 7 3/8. So it's just a matter of just taking that 1/8 of an inch off, just so we've got that little bit of edge around there, and that just makes it look a little bit more dimensional to have that. So I've cut a piece for the front of my card. I've also cut a piece for the back, and that's optional, you don't have to do that, but I like it on the back. And I've also cut a piece for my flap like that. And if you've notched your edges like I have, make sure you do that on your paper as well. So I've done that. I've also cut out of the speckled paper that we made, I cut a piece for the front of our box pocket. Same, taking 1/8 of an inch off, so that will sit on the front of there. And also out of that speckly paper, I cut a piece for just this single card that we made. Now out of this lighter piece of paper that we made that just had the antique linen on it, if you've, like me, printed with your computer your sentiment, then you can set that aside for later, because we actually need to we need to place that underneath the window, so we need to be fiddling around a little bit. But if you're not using this, if you're going to use your sentiment stamp, you can now go ahead and cut your mats as well, just out of this lighter paper. So you're going to cut a piece for the card front that we made, and don't forget to notch the edges. And you're also going to want to cut a piece that's going to fit on the inside of our pocket in here. So just a piece 1/8 of an inch small all the way around, and that will go in there. Once you've cut out your pattern paper, you're going to need to ink around the edges in a similar way that we did to our card. But this time I'm beginning with the walnut stain in the Distress Ink, and I'll show you how I do that. So it's just a matter of using your blending tool and just lifting it up a little bit. I'm on the Teflon mat, and you just come in from the edge like this. Really simple. And you're catching the edge, but you're also just blending softly into that ink you've already got on your paper. And it just makes a nice frame around the edge. Once you've got your ink around the edges, the next step is to create some little tears in your front pattern paper piece. And this is optional, you don't have to do this, but I like it. And I'm going to place, it's just really a simple matter of tearing it, just like that. And I like to have 2 up the top, make it a little bit of a random shape. And I'm also going to add 1 down the bottom, just like that. And then once we have our tears, we're going to come in, well, I use Distress Oxide, but you can continue to use your walnut stain ink, but I like the oxide. And we're going to just catch the edges. So to do these, actually what I'll do first is I will add my walnut stain ink to my tears first, because it hasn't got any ink on it. And all you do is just bend it to the back like this, and just come in like that. And then on the other side you do exactly the same thing. Like that. And now I'm going to use my oxide. Now when I'm using my oxide, what I like to do is flip it over to the back, and I actually come in from the back like this. And the reason I do that is, particularly around these torn areas, I'm going to curl that around to the front of my paper. So I don't want any of this white paper showing when I do that. So I sort of want to catch, colour all of that. So just sort of get a fair bit of ink around those torn edges, like that. And I do the straight edges because I'm going to distress those a little bit. Now also just get a fair bit in the corners as well, like that, because we're going to curl those around to the front also. And I just continue around with my oxide like that until I've got it all done. I've got my inking done now, and you can see how effective that looks. I've got my tears all inked up. They look very old, which is really nice. And I also added a couple into the side of my flat piece as well, just to add a bit of interest. It's time to do some stamping now, and I'm going to use the largest circle from my stamp set, and I'm going to take the piece of paper that we cut for the front of our pocket, our box pocket here. That's this piece. And I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to simply place it about in the middle. Doesn't really matter if it's a little bit off, as long as it's approximately in the middle. and I'm just using a stamping platform here to do this because I do want a nice crisp image. And I'm going to be using my walnut stain oxide ink for this, but you can just use your ordinary ordinary distress ink if that's what you have. I'll just ink that up. Bring it over, give it a good press, and we'll see what we have. So I wanted a little bit darker than that, so I'm going to do another stamping. That's the great thing about having a stamping platform. You can just keep stamping that image until you're happy with it. So let's see what we get with our second stamping. That's looking good, but I might go in with just a third one just to make sure I get it nice and solid, because I want this to act as a frame for my sentiment. So I want a nice crisp dark image. And that looks good. I'm really happy with that. And that's what it looks like. To cut out our frame, it's a really simple process. All we need to do is take our box pocket card that we have and a piece of paper we've just stamped, and what we're going to do is secure this into the center. So we're going to take some glue stick, I'm going to flip it over, and I don't know if you can see behind, because I inked it quite heavily, you can still see where that frame is. I just want to apply some glue in the center. I don't want to apply it around the outside of that circle, I just want to apply it on the inside. And this is really just to hold it in place while we cut it out. And then I'm going to center it onto my card, leaving my little gaps around the edge. Just center it in there like that until you're happy with it, and just press down in the middle, and we're going to secure it. Now if you don't have this stamp and you want to create this project, that's fine. All you're going to do is you're going to do a very similar thing. You're not going to stamp obviously, but you're going to still put some glue in the center, just stick it down like I have, and you're going to take about a 2-inch punch. Let me just check that. Let me just check that for you. It's just over 2 inches. So between a 2-inch and a 2 1/4 inch punch, and you can punch that out with just with your punch. But I'm using my stamp, so I'm actually going to take a craft knife now that is secured, and I'm just going to run my craft knife very carefully all the way around that inside shape of my stamp, like that. Okay, that's done. So then you're just going to pop out that circle, and these two pieces should be loose. Okay, that's what we want, because we're going to put a piece of plastic in here in between these two layers, so we want those to be loose. But before we do that, we're going to ink these edges, get rid of this sort of white cut edge, and I'm going to be using my walnut stain oxide, Distress Oxide, and I just come in from the back with my sponge like that and just ink all of those edges. And I'm also going to do the same on my pocket, just to get rid of those white edges. I have both of those edges inked now, so now it's time to start placing our sentiments. Now if you're doing stamped sentiments, you can completely skip this step, because you will already have your paper adhered, well, cut out ready to go in here, so you don't need to do this step. But if you're like me and working with some printed text, this is the way you're going to line it up. So this one I want to sit on the inside of my card, so that when inside my pocket. So when my card is in here, I'm going to have this one on my card, and when I pull my card out, I want this one to appear behind the frame. So in order to line that up, all I do is I open it up and I'm going to fold my edges in all the way in so that those little 1/4 inch spine pieces are on the inside, and I'm going to lay that over the top, and I'm simply going to line it up in that window to where I am happy with it, where I want it to be. And that looks pretty good, like that. Maybe I'll have it down a little bit more, like that. And then I'm going to take a pencil, and it's simply a matter of tracing around this edge, like that, like that, and tracing around the bottom. And then I'm going to mark where that very first fold line is. So I'm marking there on that the fold line that is closest to my cutout. Then I'm going to take that off, and I need to cut this out, but I want to cut it out. Maybe I start with about 1/16 of an inch inside that line I've traced. And if I need to cut more off, I can. It's just a matter of having a look at how it fits. So I come in here roughly about 1/16 of an inch inside that line, and I'm just going to take my ruler and craft knife, and I'm going to cut like that. And I'm going to come down on this side as well. I hope that's right. I haven't got my head right over the top because I don't want to be blocking your view. And I might do this side next, just inside those lines. And don't worry if it's a little bit off, because you're not really going to see this. You're only going to see the sentiment part. This is just to make sure it fits in our pocket. Like that. So let's have a look and see how we went. So I'll show you that. It looks like I can trim a little bit more off the top and the bottom. See there? Just a tiny bit more. The sides look good. So I'll do that. I'll trim a little bit more off. And this is what you do. It's just a matter of adjusting it to fit. Like that. Let's have a look at that. That's looking really good now. So when I close this, that will be like that. You can see that's now lined up nicely inside. So the only edge I need to ink on this one is actually this side edge. This is the only edge you're going to see. So I'll go ahead and do that now. This is what it looks like inked up. And if you're also doing the version that using a stamped sentiment, you'll also go ahead and ink yours in the same way, and it's sticking it in the same way we're doing it now. So all I've done is I've gone ahead and I've applied some 1/4 of an inch double-sided tape. I've applied some across the top, bottom and sides, and then it's just a matter of, I'm going to first of all take off the top one like that, and I'm going to apply a little bit of glue stick in the center here. And you might notice I've left my other tapes on for the moment, just so I can get the positioning right. And then it's just a matter of sticking it, centering it, and sticking it inside our little pocket here. So I'll get that nicely centered, and I'm going to stick this top one down, and I'm going to come and just rub my thumb where that glue is, and now I can remove the rest of the tape backing. I find that just gives me a little bit of wiggle space, because I don't always get it lined up straight away the first time. Sometimes it takes me a couple of goes, so that kind of gives me that leeway. Now I've put the glue there because I want this piece to be quite flat on the inside, so it doesn't get caught up on our card. So that's what it looks like on the inside, and then when we fold it, that's what it looks like, nicely inside our window. So to line up our sentiment for our card insert, which is this one here, we're going to begin by doing it exactly the same way we did for inside our pocket, by simply lining it up in the frame, and we're just going to mark the top and the bottom, and I'm going to mark where that first fold line comes, it's closest to the frame, like that. But I'm not going to mark this edge like we did last time. Okay, so we can move it, and I've already joined this up with a line, a pencil line. I've joined those two marks with a pencil line. So now all we need to do is measure our card, and we know it measures 3.5 inches. So I'm simply going to measure 3.5 inches from that drawn pencil line that I made, 3.5 inches, and I'm going to join that up as well, like that. So that's what we should have. We have the line here, the top and the bottom, and I have this line here because I want my pattern paper to extend all the way across to here. So now it's just an easy matter of cutting it out exactly the same way. We're going to cut about 1/16 of an inch away from those drawn lines, and then we're going to ink all the edges, and then we're going to be applying it to our card. So I have my piece cut out now, but because my card is actually narrower, we've made it narrower to fit in there. To get the right size, all I'm going to do is center it over the top like that, and you can see I've got overhang on each side. We're going to take our pencil and trace that like that, and now I'm going to trim that line just about 1/16 of an inch away, like that. And now it looks to be the right size, and I'm just going to corner punch my two corners and ink and stick that on in the same way we did the last piece. I've decided I want to go ahead and just do a little bit of distressing on this edge, which is the edge that sticks out from the pocket, and I thought I'd show you how I do that. So I've applied my double-sided tape, and on the edge I want to distress, I make sure I just leave a small tiny sort of edge. I don't put the tape right up close, I just leave a bit of an edge, and then it's just a matter of taking my fingernail like this and roughing up that edge like that. It just sort of adds that bit of distressing, and the reason I like to do that after I've applied my tape is that because this is quite thin paper, the tape adds a little bit of stability to the paper, so it's easier for you to do this. Also, it sort of gives it a sort of a barrier that it's not going to go past. So if you do tear it, which is kind of a bonus when that happens because you want it nice and distressed, it's not going to go past that tape. You can literally run your finger along that tape, and it just makes it a lot easier. And if you do still end up with you haven't inked quite enough and you do get some white bits, you can just come back with your blending tool and add a bit more ink to that. So I have my pattern paper attached to my card now and centered on there, And so let's see how it looks. So there we have our other sentiment, and when we slide this in, hopefully it will sit nicely in the center. It does. So that's really good. So now would be the time, if you're actually stamping your sentiments, now's the time to do that. So you would have a blank piece of paper here. So then it's just a matter of holding that over the top like that and popping your stamp through that window and then stamping it through the window. That way you can be sure that you have that nicely centered. And then you would do the same thing. You would have a blank piece of paper adhered to your card front. You'd slip it in, and then while it's in there, you would line up your stamp through the window and stamp it through the window. So then you can be sure that you have your stamped image nicely lined up as well. A lot of these techniques I'm showing you today are completely optional on your card. For instance, the inking of the edges, making your tears, and even this step here that we're going to be doing, that's adding a little window. They're all optional and you don't have to do them all. I'm just showing you all these techniques because you can use them in other projects. You don't necessarily even have to use them all in this one. So this is an optional extra as well. You can just simply leave your window like that, just as an opening, and that's fine. But I actually like to put a little bit of cellophane in there, so it just looks, to me, it just looks a little more finished. And I'm just using these little cellophane bags you can pick up from your cheap $2 store. They're really inexpensive, and I just use those to cut apart for my windows. You can also recycle packaging as well. It's a really good way to recycle. So from one of these bags, I've simply cut a 2.5 inch square. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a 2.5 inch square of cellophane like that. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere that to the front of my card here. And today I'm going to be using some glossy accents, and I've actually got a nice fine tip on my glossy accents. Kaszazz sell these really great tips that fit onto the top of your bottle, so you can get a nice fine line, and you don't want to use too much glue. So all I do is I just run a small amount of glue and get it going. There it is, just around that edge like that. Now, could I have put this behind this opening? I could have, but it just means the edge of your little bit of cellophane could get caught up on your card. But by sandwiching it in between the card and the paper, all the edges are enclosed, so there's no way it can get caught up. And then on my cellophane, I'm just going to run a bit of glue just around the outside edge. Like that. You don't need much glue, and it will dry quicker the less you use. So I'm going to turn that over and just center that over my opening. And just run your finger around that edge to make sure it's stuck. Now, to stick my paper on top, I'm going to put some double-sided tape, and then I'm going to apply my glue around the outside of that opening. Okay, so make sure you apply the glue in these little rough parts close to the edge. And I haven't taken the backing off my tape yet. I'm leaving that on for the moment. I just want to try and center this and match up that cut line as best I can. So I'm going to try and line up my straight edges as well as my cut frame edge. And just sort of keep wiggling it. That's why I haven't taken the backing off my double-sided tape, because I can keep sliding this around until I get it so it's matched, that cut edge is matched up perfectly, which it seems to be. Like that. And when you're happy and you feel like everything's lined up, you can even give it a check from the other side to see. That looks pretty good. And the great thing about glossy accents is if you do happen to get a little bit of glue, as I have here, you can see there's some bits of glue here, that will dry clear, so you won't notice it. And then once I have that where I want it, I'm then going to remove my tape. I'll take the top piece off first. Stick that down. And then I'll do my side pieces. And now my bottom piece. Just doing it gradually like that. It just gives you, it just helps you to line it up. Like that. And now I have it all stuck down. And that's what it should look like. Well, now that we have our pocket finished, we can go ahead and start putting our card together. But there's a few things I have done before we go ahead and attach this to the front of our card. And one of the things I've done is that I've applied the mat to the little card that we created, and I stuck it down in exactly the same way as I did our card insert. So that was just double-sided tape, and I applied glue stick in the center. Because these are inserts, we want them to sit quite flat. So I've gone ahead and done that in exactly the same way. Now, the other thing I like to do before I do my front cover is put my card insert inside the card. It's just easier to apply it before I have any bulk on the front of my card. So I've just created this card insert on my computer, and I've just folded it in half, and I've applied one strip of double-sided tape on the top of my insert. And the way I pop it in is I just open my card and I just place it where I want it in the center. Oh, also I've applied a little bit of antique linen ink around the edge just to lift it a little bit. So I just pop it in so it's centered in my card, and I just make sure that's going to close okay. So I want that fold line right up against my crease. So I just pop it like that, and when I'm happy with its placement, I just take the tape off like that, and then I just close my card over the top like that and press down. And the reason I put the tape on the top of the insert is that when I open my card, the insert will open with it like that. So once that's on the inside, I then go ahead, and if I'm decorating the back of my card, I will do that as well, because it's just, again, before I get any bulk or embellishments put on the front, it's much easier to do that now. So I've simply taken the mat that we had previously cut for the back of the card. I applied double-sided tape all around the outer edge, and then I distressed the edges in the same way I showed you, just with my fingernail up against the tape, and I folded some of the corners in, as you can see, like that. and then I peeled off the top tape, positioned it, and peeled off the rest of my tape. Now I haven't applied any glue on the inside here because I like this sort of bubbly texture that we got when we created our papers, and I didn't want to lose that, so I've left that as is. So I've put the back of the paper on, and I'm going to show you how I actually did that with the front. So I'm just showing you what I've done so far. I've also applied the mat to the front of the flap in exactly the same way. Again, I haven't used any glue in the center. And then I also applied my mat to the inside of the flap as well. So again, I've used my computer to print, but if you haven't, that will probably just be blank. But now you can go ahead and stamp whatever you want to stamp on there, whether it be a sentiment or whether it be maybe a beautiful flower might look nice on there, an image, whatever you want to put there, you can. So I've gone ahead and done that. So we're up to the front now, and I could just pop my mat on the top, glue it down, and then I could just apply double-sided tape on here and plonk it down. Just stick it onto the front. That would be one way, and that would probably be quite easy, but I'm kind of not a fan of having these flaps in the way. So if I was just to stick that down, you see the flaps, the cards, the insert can actually get caught up on them. So where I can hide them, I will. But if you want a simple way of doing it, by all means, you can just pop your, adhere your mat to your front of your card, then double-sided tape on both of these and some glue along here. Sorry, not there, glue along this side, but I'll show you in a minute. And you can just stick it straight on top if you're happy to do that. But I'm just going to show you another way of doing it. It does take a little bit more time and fiddlier, but it's a neater finish and much easier to get your card in and out. So what we're going to do, I'll move that aside. We need to do this before you pop your paper, your mat onto the front of your card. So we'll move this over. Now before I show you, I'll just show you what I've done to the back, how I've actually applied my double-sided tape. So particularly when there's tears and we're distressing these corners, you don't want your tape to run right to these edges because we want to have the ability to fold those over to the front. So when you're applying your tape, just give yourself a little bit of room to distress those edges. I've also popped a little bit of tape at the bottom of each of those tears just to secure the bottom of the tear, and I've done it down the bottom here as well, and I have avoided those corners, as you can see. And I'm not going to be applying any glue in the center, just the same as the back, and that will get stuck down onto the front of the cover. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll show you another way of adhering this. So we need to grab our card and we need to place this on here just for positioning, just to get an idea of where we're going to be putting our pocket. So this is going to fold over like that, and we want our pocket to sit probably maybe 1/16 of an inch away from that edge of our flap. We don't want it too close because our flap will get stuck. So we do want to leave a little bit of room, and we want it approximately centered this way. So the way I'm going to mark this is I'm going to fold these fold lines on the closest fold to the front. So I'm folding it there, I'm folding that right over there. This will stick out, and I'm going to fold that right over there just so we can get our marks. We're going to mark this onto our paper. So I'm going to lay it down. So I'm going to grab my pencil now, and I'm going to mark all four corners. One here, one here, one here, and one here. just lift it up, make sure you can see it. Yes, I can see that one, I can see that one, and I can see those at the top, so I can move that now. So you can remove your paper now from your card, and we're going to take our ruler and our blade, our knife, and we're going to cut a slit for our little flaps to go in. Now we need to make that again about 1/16 of an inch down. So I'll show you these marks I've made. So I'm going to come about 1/16 of an inch down. So I'll do that cut and I'll show you what it looks like. So I hope I'm about that. I can't get right over it to see. I think that looks about right. And I'm going to cut just from those, just in between those two marks, like that. Okay, I'll show you that. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. So can you see where I've cut between those two marks and about 1/16 of an inch away? Hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to do the same with my bottom marks and just cut between those two marks like that. Like that. Now we need to, where's my pocket? Here it is. We need to just test this out. Now before I do this, I've noticed I haven't tabbed my little corners. I've done those ones, but now I just need to tab, just open that up. I just need to tab these off slightly. It just helps to get it into that slot. And I'll do this side as well. This makes life a bit easier. Now we've got to test and see that that's going to fit. It looks like it might. That's looking good. And we'll see. There we go. Now by doing this, I hope you can see that those tabs are now on the back side of our paper. They're hidden, they're out of the way, and when we go to pop our card into our pocket, I don't know if you can see that they're actually out of the way. They're not going to be getting, your card's not going to be getting caught up on it in any way. So that's looking like it's going to fit. So make sure you test it and make sure it does. Once you're happy, we'll take it out. We're going to apply some tape. Now you're going to apply your tape, double-sided tape. This is just 1/4 of an inch double-sided tape. We're going to apply it underneath, directly underneath that cut I've made there, and the same on this side. And that's going to hold our tabs in place. All right, so we've got that. I like to take my bone folder and burnish my tape when I apply it to make sure it's stuck really well. And again, I'm going to come over now and make sure you just fold these back now on the line they're meant to go on, like that. That. Pop it through the slot. Now I'll also just test my card, because you still have wiggle room here to move it a little bit. Just make sure, might move it this way. That looks pretty good. So now I think I can go ahead and stick those tabs down. So we're just going to lift it up. Okay. Now be careful when you're sticking this down, because don't forget this is like a 3-dimensional box. You don't want to flatten this and lose your little box shape. So be gentle when you're pushing this down. You don't want to flatten it. Okay, so once we have it in place, let's make sure we've got our shape, and you can use your bone folder to come in here and press it down. Press it down like that. Now, the one thing I did forget to do is apply my glue to the edge. So when you're doing this again, before you stick this down, we also want to apply a thin line of glue to, I'll fold this back and show you, to the underside of the card. So I'm going to do that now with my glossy accents. I've got a nice thin tip here. So this will be easier to do if you actually do this before you stick those tabs down. So let me just get my hand in there. Now you only need a very thin line of glue, and this is for our second pocket. So you just apply your glue along this fold here. Sorry, not the fold, the edge. Like that. And now I can stick that down as well. Like that. So again, guys, do that before you stick your tabs down. I forgot to do it. So now you can see, I hope you can see, I've actually stuck the back side of the pocket down with my glue just along this edge here. And what that does is it creates a pocket in the back here for this card to go into. That goes in there, and then this card sits on top, so we have a double pocket there. Okay, so that's how that works. So you can, as I said, you can just stick that directly down on the top, but I just find that this is a lot neater. Let's stick this, pop this lid on. I find this a lot neater and easier for the card to go in and out. So now I have that, my pocket stuck on the front. Now I can go ahead and adhere this down. So again, the way I do that is I always just start with the top. So I take my top layer of tape off, like that. And then that forms sort of an anchor. So I can move this around here where I still have the backing of my tape in place. Let me see. And I can stick those bits down like that. And now I can lift it up and take the rest of the tape off. Oh, actually, before I do that, I also need to apply more tape. Now I've cut my little slits there. We need to put tape on the top of that slit, like that, and over the tab as well. So these two pieces of tape will be side by side, and what that does is it closes that slit we've made, so it's actually adhered to our card and won't come undone. So one there, I hope you can see that, and one there on the top. Again, I'm going to take my bone folder and give that a burnish so they're stuck really well. And I can take that tape off now. So again, this is easier to do before you stick the top layer down. Take it off. And I'm not applying any glue to the middle because I want to keep that texture and that sort of bubbly look. So I just sort of come down like this, just gradually laying it down like that, like so. And again, we can get our bone folder and burnish that tape that is underneath there, like that. And you can pop your bone folder inside and give it a burnish, like that. And you can come along now and re-rough up your edges, and you know, sort of put them how you would like. If you want to, you could put a little bit of glue under there if you want to hold it, if it's not sitting how you'd like. I tend to not worry too much about it. It does settle after a while where you want it, so you just go around with your finger, and now it's stuck down. You can sort of randomly, you know, you can do your corners. I tuck some in like that. Some I'll just fold over like that, just so it's a bit more random. Do that. This is where a fingernail comes in handy, guys. Handy tool to have. Mine aren't very long, but long enough. And we just do that. So you can sort of play around with that till you're happy with it. So the way it works then, I would probably wait until that glue dried before you put this card in here. But basically you can see that will slide in there like that. So I won't put it in, otherwise the edge will probably get adhered because that will take a little while to dry. So I'll just sit it there for now. And then this card acts as the closure, and that goes in there nice and easily now because we've made it a raised box, but also we don't have those pesky little tabs in here getting in the way. So it's very easy to take in and out, and that is our closure as well. So that's it for this video. We've now got our card all constructed. So we've still got to do some embellishing. So, so far I've used my background stamp two ways. So the first way I used it to create my background papers, which you saw in part 1. And in this part you've seen how I've used it to form a frame and cut it out so that it's a little window as well. And then in the next video I'm going to show you how I've used this stamp to create embellishments for my card. So we're going to go ahead and lift it a little bit and create some embellishments. So I really hope you like that. If you did, it really helps if you hit the like button, and also if you subscribe and hit the notification button, you'll know when I've uploaded the third and final part to this video series. So thank you for watching.